Hi everybody, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. And today I have a bit of a impromptu discussion video. I wanted to make a video kind of like this for a while, but I haven't exactly planned this video. I haven't sat down and really thought about what I'm going to say, so it's going to be entirely just chatty and a little bit off the cuff. So if you like that kind of video, or at least don't mind it, stick around, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Today I'm going to be talking about audiobooks and my experience with them and the pros and cons that have kind of come up for me, and how audiobooks, how I interact with them. So if you like chatty, bookish talks about all kinds of bookish topics, I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you are not already, and click the little bell icon so that you're notified whenever I post new videos. So I am a very busy person who is very reluctantly busy and somehow finds herself always busy. It's not even something that I try to do, really. I have a very intensive job. I'm a music teacher in public schools, and what that entails in California is moving from site to site and teaching hundreds of kids. I actually have a little bit under 300 students this year, which actually isn't unusual for me. It is more this year than it's been in a little while, probably since like before the pandemic happened. But that is sort of the general idea of my job. And so I teach at 8 different elementary schools, and I have about 300 students. And so all the things that entails makes my job very intensive, and I don't have a job where I can really listen to audiobooks like while I'm working, except when I'm driving. And because I work at multiple school sites, I do have a good amount of driving time in my day, albeit they're kind of short bursts because many of my schools are fairly close together. I think the biggest amount of driving I have to do on any given day is like 8 miles from one site to another, but that's probably like the worst one. So I generally am in the car for little bouts of time, and that's the exception of my actual commute. So I'm also in the car a lot, taking my kid to daycare and then going to work, and that adds up to usually about maybe 30 or 45 minutes, like that whole experience, taking him and going to work. And then vice versa at the end of the day, leaving work and going to pick him up and then driving home. So I have quite a bit of car time throughout my day, but it's never time that's like a big chunk. It's little bursts of time here and there. And so when I'm driving, I often will just look to music, because if I'm listening to an audiobook, I would like to be able to just focus on that for longer than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. However, I've started sometimes, if it's a certain type of audiobook that doesn't really require me to very, very closely listen, this usually falls under the category of like rereads for me. If it's something I'm really familiar with, or I'm even vaguely generally familiar with it and it's just been a while, I can listen to those kinds of audiobooks in those little short spurts throughout my day while I'm driving. Nonfiction actually works for this too. If I'm listening to a nonfiction book, I can often deal with that in little sprints. And I'm not, too confused or too lost. Actually, it works really well for nonfiction audio for me. What doesn't work is classics on audiobook, which is always a major bummer for me because I would love to be able to read classics through audio and get a lot out of them. And I don't think this is an uncommon experience. I think a lot of people experience this with classics, mostly because often the language is different than what we're used to, as far as our vernacular of how we speak every day. Often it's a bit of a different vernacular in classics. And so that for me personally is harder to process on audio. And if I do a classic on audio, I want a long stretch to listen to it, such as if I am cleaning the house, if it's like a Saturday and I just have cleaning, or I'm just hanging out with my baby. Sometimes actually hanging out with the baby is hard to do audio with because he often, at the age that he's at now, he's a little over 1 and he's just all over the place. And he's always getting into things that he shouldn't be getting into. So I'm always just like watching him like a hawk. So as much as I would like to listen to an audiobook while I'm hanging out with my son, right now, he kind of needs my full attention. And so I end up missing things from audiobooks when I do like listen to an audiobook and spend time with him. And I also, I don't always enjoy doing that because I think it's important to be present and not have your mind in two different directions. And that kind of brings me to this other feeling that I have about audiobooks and how my experience has been with them. So as my life has become more complicated as I've gotten older, I think that audiobooks are a huge blessing for me. I used to never ever read audiobooks, and that was because I also had a bit of a stigma against audiobooks. I didn't really think it counted as reading. I thought it was a little bit of a cheap shot. And it's funny to me now that I thought that ever. And I want to just like slap old Victoria and say, no, that is ridiculous. Because now, just with more experience with audiobooks, and I thought that before I was really an audiobook listener. So I had like no experience with them, and I just had this idea about audiobooks not really being reading, or that they are not necessarily counting as reading, which is so silly. So this is where I am now with audiobooks. I hope this video is making some sort of sense, because the way that I feel right now, it's not making any sense. I am extremely thankful for audiobooks in my life, and honestly, without audiobooks, I think I would just not read a lot of the time. The fact that I can have literally like no physical reading time some days, many days I cannot sit down with a book until I'm about to go to sleep, and that usually only lasts about like 2 pages before I am conked out and I cannot go on anymore. I am just exhausted at that point. But because audiobooks exist, I can, even in a time of my life where I have almost no physical reading time, I can still enjoy a book. And at first I was fighting it. I was fighting the audiobook presence in my life. And the reason that I have been fighting it is because it's not my preferred way to read a book. I am a visual person. I'm a visual learner, and I always have been. And I need to read a physical book to really, I think, really enjoy the experience. The one of the cons of listening to audiobooks for me is that I think that the experience of reading it with my eyes is better. And for me personally, this is just me, for me personally, audiobook listening is not the full experience that I want. But at the moment in my life, it is what I will settle for, because I would rather be able to read like at all. I'm happy that I can read, even if it's in this different format. And at the end of the day, though, it is still not my preferred way. I wish I could read everything with my eyeballs. And so I've often wondered about that and about my relationship with audiobooks, because I've gone back and forth. I've gone like months at a time where I refused to listen to an audiobook. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And actually, most of the time it was because I really just felt like I needed to listen to music. And music in my life helps me often emotionally deal with things, and it helps me cope. And I think books can do that as well, but for me, not in the same way that music can. Listening to music will help me to feel okay, even when I really don't feel okay. Music will get me through those times, and those times have been recent. And so I have like walked away from audiobooks for like 5 or 6 months at a time even. I think that was the longest stretch that I went recently. It was like 6 months without having any audiobooks in my life. And then I brought them back. And I don't really remember why I brought them back, but I think I was just like, yeah, I'm ready. I've had a break from audiobooks and now I'm ready. And so I bring all these things up because I think that's okay too. For a while, like having a booktube channel and, just being candid with you, if you have a booktube channel and you find yourself without time to read, you start to wonder if you should be a booktube channel at all. And so I've come across that in my own thinking and wondered if I should continue this channel, because my volume of reading has lessened dramatically. Even with reading audiobooks, I'm not reading as much as I did when I started this channel. And I've always been a slow reader, but it's just that when I first started doing booktube and making a booktube channel, I was reading at a volume that I don't know if I will match again, like for a long time. And that could change. I don't know. But at least at the moment, I just could not match it now at like this year where I am in this current moment. I could not match that. No matter how hard I tried, it just wouldn't happen. And so I think for a while, I felt like because I had a booktube channel, I had to read in some way constantly. And even if it was audiobooks and I didn't even want to be listening to an audiobook, I would force myself to listen to an audiobook, even though it's not what I wanted to be listening to. Sometimes I needed music and I would like deny myself that. And I think I still sometimes catch myself doing that. But what I am realizing is that there's a season for everything, and everything has its place. And you should do what you feel like doing. And you shouldn't feel obligated out of your own sense of obligation. And it's all been self-imposed pressures. No one is holding a gun to my head saying, you better read 4 books this month, or whatever, whatever standard that I made for myself. But I started to get into this weird mentality where if I wasn't listening to an audiobook when I had the chance, that I was like wasting my time and I could have been reading. And I've seen this attitude a little bit here and there on BookTube in various places. Some people have audiobooks on all day long, no matter what they're doing. And I think that's great if that works for them. But I felt pressured with audiobooks that even though I didn't want to be listening, I felt like I should be listening. And that makes reading a chore. So it doesn't matter if it's physical or audio. You can still make reading a chore for yourself. And that's kind of what I was doing, I think, with audiobooks for a while. And I think I burned myself out. And that's why I didn't listen to audiobooks for like 6 months at a time, because I was kind of like, enough is enough. I don't want to force myself to listen to an audiobook when I don't feel like it. And so I didn't. And actually that period of time was great. And I really enjoyed just listening to music and diving into that hobby more. All this to say, I think I have struck a better balance now. I still, I have had to be okay with being a slow reader, even with audiobooks going. But I also don't like to listen to audiobooks super fast, which I know is another skill that some people have, and they can totally follow everything and listen to it on, 2-3 times speed. And none of that has ever been enjoyable for me. I actually like listening to someone at normal speed, which is perhaps an unpopular opinion, but I really like it because I like to hear the way someone talks. I like to hear the pacing and the inflection. And when you speed it up, even like by 0.5, that changes a little bit. I do actually listen to 1.5 kind of often. But I will sometimes listen to 1 and be fine with that. That is just what works for me with audiobooks is just listening to the actual pace of someone's voice. And that depends. Sometimes it's like, okay, I think I could listen to this person a little faster. So it does depend on the voice as well. So in conclusion, I am thankful for audiobooks because in a time of my life when physical reading is really hard to come by, I can still read, even though it is not how I like to read. It is a kind of compromise for me. Now, that's not how a lot of people experience audiobooks. So I guess my question for you in the comments is, how do you experience audiobooks? Do you listen to audiobooks because you enjoy them, that you genuinely enjoy that medium? Or do you listen to audiobooks because you can't physically read, or you want to get through things faster, or you want to push through certain sections of a book? I would be really curious to know how you use audiobooks and why you use audiobooks. And I do also think that some audiobook narrators and also some audiobook productions are better than others, and some of them are real works of art that you can appreciate, and some of them they put a lot of work into, and so those also you can enjoy as like an experience. So that, I feel like those kind of fall in a different category for me, as like sometimes you'll watch a booktuber and they'll say, this book is great, but it's better on audio. And whenever I hear someone say that, I always take note because that is a rarity, I think. I think it's really unusual to find that, at least in my opinion. I would say 9 times out of 10, reading the physical book is a better experience for me. But the audiobook, I'm just thankful that it exists and that it's there. But when someone says that the production of an audiobook is so good that it is like higher than physically reading it, that is always really interesting to me, and I have to take note and I listen to them. And I usually agree, actually. I would love to hear your thoughts on audiobooks and how they play into your life. Are you a person that just enjoys having an audiobook on all day, doing whatever tasks, and if you're able to like focus on it and do other things? Are you a person like me who likes to just like devote certain amounts of times where you can really focus on it? How has audiobook listening changed your reading or affected your reading? I would love to know down below in the comments. Thank you for listening to this very rambly video, which hopefully had some direction by the end. It was a very unplanned video. So thank you for making it all the way to the end. If you've made it this far, I would like you to leave some headphone emojis, maybe. I think those exist. Some kind of audio emoji if headphones don't exist. But I want to say they should exist. So leave me some headphones in the comments if you've made it all the way to the end. I have other social media links down below if you want to follow me in other places. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Keep reading great books, no matter how you read them. And until next time, bye-bye.